Hey guys, welcome to Double Shot of Steelers, presented by FanDuel. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, soon to be joined by our beat writer, Chris Halleck. We're back from East Rutherford, New Jersey, where your football team sadly survived an inferior opponent. At least we think it's an inferior opponent. At least we think they survived. There's a lot of questions after week one. Most of them, believe it or not, are based in positive things like, hey, did you really think that the offense was going to be able to put up that many points? Hey, did you really think that Aaron Rodgers was going to be that efficient? Just like that. And he was. Hey, did you think DK Metcalf was going to bounce right back from that early drop? There were positive things. I'm familiar enough with this fan base to know that that's not going to be anybody's focus for a while. It's going to be all about stopping the run. The Seahawks could come out this Sunday in a formation of 5 wide receivers, and everyone's still going to be focused on stopping the run. That's okay. That's okay. It has to get done. Remember, and I did say this on Friday before we embarked on our journey out there, this team needed first to build a floor, a foundation of what it's going to be. And that foundation, as I stated plainly, needed to be stopping the run and, oh, by the way, running the ball yourself. Neither of those things happened in East Rutherford. Neither of those things. That has to get addressed. Now, if you can get it addressed in the form of wins, if you can have it, cloaked in success, great, awesome. This is a lot like the 10-3 thing last year. There were some things that didn't go the way you wanted, but you kept getting the result and you kept progressing. And then, of course, things went really, really bad because they didn't have that foundation in place that they needed on either side of the ball. It has to get addressed. It has to get not just talked about and not just finger wagged by the head coach. That's what we're going to come up. That's what we're going to really go at today, Chris and I, because Mike Tomlin did have his press conference this afternoon. He possibly invented a word as to what it is that the Steelers need to become by saying that they need to be stouter. That's stout with an ER at the end. Now, I'm not going to lie. I looked it up. I went to Merriam-Webster to see if stout has a version that has an ER at the end. The word stout itself, of course, does exist, beginning or originating really in 14th century etymology. But I couldn't find a stouter. It's always, to me, it's been more stout or less stout. However, if he wants stouter and stouter seeps through, that's going to be part of this, part of it, because these players, I'm sorry, you're in the National Football League. You can't accept getting ragdolled the way a couple of these guys did on occasion. It didn't happen every play, but you know how that goes. You get it on the very first snap on that long Breece Hall run, and it's going to show up on video all week long, every which way you turn. And yeah, I'm talking about Keanu Benton. But you also saw guys getting physically overwhelmed like Isaiah Loudermilk, who's a monstrous human being. It should never happen to him. Peyton Wilson, who has not been able to stop the run. These guys, they have to be that stouter or they're going to be out of the league. But let's also not pretend that that's all it is, because that's what this coach does a lot. He'll lay it on, well, we just need to tackle better. Well, what's the problem here? What happened? We need to tackle better. He's never, ever, ever, ever going to say that schematics were a big, big part of what went wrong for the run defense, or for that matter, the run offense. We're going to get to both of those when we come back and get joined by Chris Halleck.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Welcome back. Joined now by Chris Halleck. Chris was at the Mike Tomlin press conference today. Did you get the sense from the coach today, Chris, that he's ready to really rethink the schematics of the run defense?
Not an overwhelming feeling, but it's definitely part of it. I know people probably hear that and they think, yeah, okay, it's just the same old Tomlin. But I mean,
yes,
but I do think that's part of it. Whenever, so the one thing that we can say for sure is we can't say there was an adjustment made at some point in the game. Players acknowledge that. Even the players who had told me that they were frustrated that it took that long to make an adjustment, they acknowledged that an adjustment was made, and thus they had a crucial. Mike Tomlin highlighted it today, and I went back and looked, and it was a really, really big series. That 3-and-out before Rodgers went down and Boswell kicked the 60-yard field goal, that was a big 3-and-out because they had a 5-yard completion on first down. 2nd and 5 happens. Breece Hall only gets 2 yards. That's a major win based off of the way things went that day. And then they get Fields for a loss of 2 on 3rd down and then force the Jets to punt. That's a big thing, and that's after the adjustment was made. So maybe that's enough of a kick in the pants for the coaches to be like, okay, maybe we do need to be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe we do need to have some more run blitzes. And yeah, on top of that, players got to play too, because sometimes everything else was played well, and then one guy screwed it up for everybody else.
Yep. Chris, football season is finally here. Time to check out the latest odds, futures, and win totals on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Do you think the Steelers are headed to the Super Bowl like Halleck does? Because Halleck just fell for Sunday, hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Halleck also had a FanDuel prop bet on the Ravens holding on to that lead.
No, I did not.
Oh, yeah, he did. I was in the car with him. He was falling apart. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, no.
I'm lying.
I would have never bet that. That's just me, though.
Lock in your much smarter bets today. Whatever your game, FanDuel Sportsbook delivers the latest lines, futures, and specials so that you can join in on all the action. In all seriousness, Chris, can you imagine the money that was lost?
Oh, yeah. I can imagine. Can you imagine the number of people, first off?
Let me rephrase that. The money that was won.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because there's a lot of people who I'm sure would have had the Bills that night. It's a great matchup, and it's just one of those risks that you run in betting on a great matchup. But people love to do it. I'm sure it's electrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. The people I'm happy for, and you might be able to count them on one hand, are the people who had any kind of parlay that hit because they had Ben Skoranek for an anytime touchdown. That's
the Ben Skoranek anytime touchdown would have been something.
The odds of that were some of the best. I think even better than the Darnell Washington anytime touchdown, which I did place a bet on and did not hit on. But
he didn't even have an anytime target.
He did not.
The team needs to make schematic adjustments. It needs to change maybe a person on the field like they already did, and taking Loudermilk off and putting Y.A. Black on. Although Black didn't grade all that well. My goodness, it was the first time he'd ever stepped on a field in the National Football League. Give him a break. I'm
also taking PFF grades with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I tell you what, when I laid eyes on Black live, I thought he looked like himself. I thought he was, oh man, I swear I was about to use the word organically. Stout. but Chris, that's who he is.
Yeah.
He is stout. His middle name could be Cliff, for those of you who get a really old reference. He will not be moved. Chris, I remember you writing that from Latrobe. He will not be moved. Well, all I saw Sunday on that defensive line was everybody other than Cam Hayward just getting moved. Cam got off his blocks pretty well.
Yeah, Cam at least whenever he was
into this stuff, he shouldn't be.
The good thing is, even with Cam, and it was not Cam's greatest performance for sure.
Right.
But even when Cam was losing, he was still taking up space. He wasn't allowing guys to go, okay, when two offensive linemen double team and then one peels off to go get the linebacker, he was making that still more difficult for the Jets offensive line than it normally is whenever an offensive line really, really executes the exact way they want to. So even whenever he lost, he went down with a fight. It was the people like Keanu Benton who got absolutely, completely obliterated on the very first run of the game. And when you look at what everybody else did up front or in the front seven, everybody else pretty much did their job. And that one guy losing kind of blew the whole thing up. So that's why, there is, and that's why, because the questions were going to be asked one way or the other. I had a certain number of questions that I was going to ask Tomlin today. And unfortunately, somebody else beat me to the punch on it. But I was going to specifically ask about, are you thinking about moving guys around? Because I don't look at Keanu Benton's performance and see, okay, that's the guy who you want playing nose for the entire season. Now, it's been one game.
For one quarter, I don't want him playing it. It's
been one game. Tomlin, the whole 2 is a pattern thing. He does hold to that. And it's not been the first, like if he struggles again in week 2 and
we're talking about Benton now.
Yeah. If he struggles in week two and we get he gets another question on that, I wouldn't be surprised to hear that, because I remember asking about the whole Gunnar Olszewski thing whenever he fumbled on punts multiple weeks in a row, and he was like, "Yeah, well, 2 is a pattern, so yeah, his job's in jeopardy."
Yeah, but when we're talking about Benton, and we'll get to the other subject here later, but when we're talking about Broderick Jones, we're not talking about people who are new to the process. We're not talking about people who fell from the sky this week. Okay, yep. They've been around for a while, and they're not helping, specifically as it relates to personnel. Yes. There do have to be moves. But to me, what I want to see change more than anything here is what the players told you, and you're reporting this weekend in East Rutherford, that they want to see change, that they made clear at halftime they wanted to see change. And that's the attitude, the approach. You don't bring in a bunch of bulldogs and then pin their ears back. That's what happened. That's what happened. Chris, I'm going to try to share with people, the press box at MetLife Stadium is in a corner. Okay. So when we're watching the opening series of that drive, meaning for the New Jerseys, they've got the football. And you and I are looking down the field. We could feel the Pittsburgh defensive alignment. There is something really powerful about that can't even get conveyed by all 22 film, because you can look at wherever you want. Okay, you got the angle. And we saw what they were doing. I mean, it was plain as day. And we saw meaning the Jets. We also saw the Steelers' inside linebackers. They might as well have been safeties. And when you watch, for example, the big early run by Breece Hall, and I know you've broken that down extensively on the DK Pittsburgh Sports app, but if you watch no one other than Patrick Queen, you'll see what went wrong. Not that PQ did anything wrong.
No, he didn't.
PQ was standing back, doing what he was told, which amounted to nothing. He was waiting for a play or a pass play or something that never came close to materializing. By the time he has an opportunity to move over to where Hall is by him, and PQ ends up tripping over a couple of the guys that got flattened in front of him.
He tripped over Benton.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you have, there's your combination. The players failed, but the coaching failed. Whereas in the second half, remember, they didn't move the press box. We're still looking from the same angle. We could see all of these various gaps, these holes getting filled by who, Chris? You see how this works?
Yeah.
So did the inside linebackers do their jobs? Yes, when they were allowed to, with the exception of Wilson, who was not tackling well, who was not reading the runs well. PQ was.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think of what has to happen this weekend, I think of, all right, we're going to see more Cole Holcomb, if only because Malik Harrison went down to an injury that's apparently going to keep him out for quite a while. You're going to have Holcomb out there. Why would you marry yourself to somebody who's showing that he can't stop the run in week 2, in year 2? Okay, yeah. I like what Wilson can do, and I'm going to appreciate that when it comes to an opponent that can really sling it.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't going to be this one. What the hell were they thinking?
I have no idea. And the Seahawks are going to be another team that's going to test the Steelers on the ground for sure.
Sure.
I'm seeing you guys in the comments, there's the PQ bashing going on again. And I'm sorry. Patrick Queen was not bad in that football game at all. I'm not saying that he was like one of the standout defenders. I think TJ Watt had the best game on that side of the ball. Jalen Ramsey barely a step behind, mainly just because of 2 huge plays he made to help seal that win. But Patrick Queen was all over. There was one play that he made that Hall was running off to the left, and Queen just ran him down, and like I thought,
it was beautiful. Yeah. I know exactly the one you're talking about.
I actually thought Queen was going to rip his hip out of his socket.
Queen also made a really big play in that fourth quarter surge that more people would have been talking about had Jalen Ramsey not come along and reminded us that he was on the team in a big way.
Oh, he reminded Garrett Wilson too.
But he did. But here again, Chris, listen. What we saw late in that football game was who these guys thought they were. Because they got aggressive, they got unleashed. Well, do you think it's a coincidence that PQ makes his big plays in the fourth quarter, that Ramsey makes his big plays in the fourth quarter? They started feeling who they were, and guess what else happened? The other team started feeling who these guys were, and it kind of changed their little mojo and vibe that they had going on for a half. I'm sorry that sometimes the things that this head coach does just are mind-blowing to me. And I'm going to say it one last time before throwing it back to you, Chris. It's not entirely on the coaches.
No, it's not.
I'm not a believer in, when you're talking about a team sport, that everything is on this or everything is on that. Not how it works. But this component was very much controllable. And it shouldn't have become a variable in this football game.
I agree, and yes, when the performance is that bad, just as it was for the famous 299 game that we've talked about so many times on this show, that was not just schematics. Players were also not playing well in that game. That was it is a perfect storm when a performance is that bad, and it was maybe not a perfect storm, but a pretty bad one. And a lot of flights were canceled over the weekend, and maybe that was a forecast for how bad things are going to be for the Steelers on defense in terms of trying to stop the run. But yeah, the players have to play better. And the biggest issue, and I've even seen some people talk about like, oh, they need to be in base more often. So you have the 3 down linemen. Listen, everybody needs to get it out of their head that there are only 2 down linemen when the Steelers are in their nickel. It's not 2 down linemen. It's 2 interior defenders with 2 edge rushers up front. It is the equivalent of having a 4-3 defense, but instead of having 3 linebackers, you have an extra defensive back, so you have 2 linebackers. And a lot of the time when the Steelers are in that and they defend the run, usually those 2 interior defenders usually eat up a lot of space, take on blocks. Daniel Ekuwale had a heck of a rep when the Steelers were in a sub package of some kind where he completely stonewalled the guard, and then everything else just happened to materialize around. Patrick Queen was free to fly into the gap and help and then TJ Watt did his TJ thing and took care of a guy on the edge, and then they ended up getting the runner for no gain. You can stop the run when you're in sub package. I don't understand that narrative either.
Dave Black says maybe the Steelers should just try better defensive schematics at the beginning of the game. We're using the word schematics too, Dave. So I'm not going to parse here, but when I'm talking about schematics here, I'm not getting real intricate. Okay. I'm talking about just an approach. We're talking about run blitzes.
Yeah.
But we're talking about, listen, if you guys, the New Jersey guys, are going to sell out to committing to running the football, we are going to sell out to committing to stopping the football. We're not going to pretend that all of a sudden you're going to turn into Joe Montana back there and start picking us apart. That's all. That's all there is to it. What the Steelers needed to do, and here again, I can't believe I'm even saying this because it's so insultingly obvious, is to take that identity that they'd been forging from St. Vincent onward and just put it out on the field. You become the aggressor. You become their problem. If you're a Breaking Bad fan, you are the one who knocks. Okay? If you remember the great Walter White line. Remember that? He said that to Skyler. I am the one who knocks. Be the one who knocks. Don't stand there and wait for the New Jersey Jets to see what they're going to do. Who cares? That is the epitome of living in your fears. They're nobody. They're nothing. And you stood back and waited. And I see here, and I knew this was going to be coming here in our comments. Oh, there you guys go again, making excuses for Patrick Queen. Why is everybody making excuses for Patrick Queen? Here, it's right here from Ted. It's not excuses. He actually played well within the framework of what he was allowed to do and when he was allowed to do it. That's not an excuse. If you're the coordinator and you tell your green dot guy, that's who PQ is, he's the one that's hearing the signals. Stay back. Wait to see what they do. What do you want him to do, Ted? How do you want him to respond to that? That's not a Roger. I'm going to actually just do what I want there, TA. That's all right with you. Okay. And then he just goes rogue? Come on, man. Use your head here a little bit.
It's hilarious to me that anybody who watches that game, who knows anything about football, even in the slightest little bit.
And I'm sure Ted does. I'm also sure that Ted had his moments during the game here, respectfully, where he's just watching and going, hey, 10 years ago, all of that running up the middle used to be the domain of the inside linebacker or the middle linebacker or the Hardy Nickerson or the Lawrence Timmons. Football's changed. They have your ILBs hanging back.
Oh, Justin, my friend. Hold on. The comments are coming in too fast. Justin, my friend, you get a gold star for the day. It's hard to play linebacker when your one tech
in your lap.
When your one tech is in your lap.
That's Benton.
Seriously.
Knocked back repeatedly. Backward into PQ.
You cannot, listen, you cannot watch that game and think that Patrick Queen was part of the problem. You just cannot. If you know anything about football, and I'm really not trying to be that guy, but if you know anything about football, you cannot watch that game and think that Patrick Queen was part of the problem. The two biggest issues with that game were the schematics and the defensive front getting dominated. It
specifically Benton.
Right, but Loudermilk was not good. Black was better, but there were a couple of times in which he lost. But again, it's a couple of times as opposed to damn near every snap. It's a combination of things. And the one thing that I will give somewhat, and it's not an excuse, but something to play a bit of devil's advocate here. And I'm using this mainly not against the run, but in terms of pressure on the quarterback. Justin Fields played a heck of a football game.
He really did.
One
thing, when Chris and I were leaving the New York metro area and we had some commentary on, and you could hear the people who cover that football team for a living talking about just how really upbeat they all were about the way that Fields performed and the way a few of their other guys, notably Hall was the best player on either side, I thought, in the football game, even better than Rodgers. They have a long way to go. They're not that good. They had themselves a day, and they had themselves a specific, very specific one-player opponent that they could feast on either side of the ball. Colt Halstead comes into our chat and says, "Hey, DK and hey, Chris, I just joined. I'm listening from 330 feet up in the air on a wind turbine in West Texas."
Wow.
Now, there's your visual for the day.
And the first.
You know, when we make trips like the one we just made, we have to drive through the Somerset area, obviously, on the turnpike. And you see all those, magnificent windmills that are up everywhere. And you think, who goes up there? And the answer is Colt Halstead. Why do they go up there? The answer is to listen to Double Shot of Steelers.
Clear signal up there.
Clear signal, she points out, especially in West Texas, which used to be Chris's old hunting grounds, as he was telling me on the drive back.
Yeah, I was just about to say the I've been out in West Texas, old Ford County, by the way, was where I used to hunt, and the cell reception out there is not great. But before you get there, you do pass by the wind turbines, and I can imagine that the views up there are pretty sweet too. But thanks for listening from up there. That's awesome.
Turning the page here, courtesy of Jeffrey Toller, he asks, "Gentlemen, at what point do the coaches realize that Broderick Jones is just not working out?" This point, the funny thing is, we can sit here and talk, Chris, all day about the chance that Jones has earned or deserved because they had him on the wrong side, or because where they drafted him, or trading up to draft him, or even factoring in the decision that has to be made related to the 5th-year option next summer. And then you can really simplify all this and say, okay, but is any of that more important than watching the quarterback get snapped like a twig? Because that's going to happen. 3 sacks, 4 pressures on 1 offensive lineman is not okay. It's not a growth pattern. It's not we'll fight through this. It's just bad. It's just bad.
That's why we've been saying throughout the preseason, Steelers don't need Broderick Jones to be a top 10 left tackle. They just need him to be an average guy over there this season. That's all they need. I mean, literally, if you have an average left tackle, imagine what you looked it up. What were Aaron Rodgers' stats from a clean pocket?
It was 20 of 25 for 219 yards. That's unbelievable. That's a clean pocket. That's not asking a lot. That's not even asking that you get, that you have some perfect score as an offensive lineman. But when almost all of the threats to Rodgers' well-being come from the same spot, you can do one of 2 things. One is to remove a player from your offense, Darnell Washington. You know what happens if you remove him? Even though Darnell wasn't targeted in that game, you miss out on not 1, but 2 touchdowns. Why? Because Darnell was the threat who curled back in front of both Ben Skoranek and then later in front of Calvin Austin. You can't do that. You can't do that.
Yeah, he's the alert. Well, not the alert. He's the check down there.
Right.
Just in case, okay, the defense is completely they didn't bite on the run. They're going completely back, and you can hit the short pass to Darnell. That's there just in case there's nothing there. And Rodgers, all right, there you go, Darnell, catch it, turn around, and start running everybody over at full speed. But the Jets, rightfully so, were probably paying attention to a lot of the things that were being said throughout the preseason and knowing that, hey, when they get inside the 20. We might need to pay a little bit more attention to that big old number 80 over there. Unfortunately,
and they did.
They did. And unfortunately for them, they paid no attention to number 15 with the flowing gold locks out of the back of the helmet because he was wide open on that first one. But yeah, listen, also just by the way, today's Chalk Talk is going to be on those 2 plays. Really, really fun to look at the details of that play.
Sam says in all capital letters that reporters and fans here are acting like they know more than NFL coaches. I don't think so. Listen, I don't know 1 millifraction about football that compared to Terrell Austin or Mike Tomlin.
No.
Okay. There's me saying it out loud for you, Sam. Okay. Not like this much. But I do know There's common sense involved. There's logic involved in building up your team internally and externally as being this really aggressive, we're going after it. The return of Blitzburg, the players talked about it. And then you come out and do that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You don't have to be, Dick LeBeau to see the difference. You needed to stop the run. Everybody knew that. They chose not to. That's not a matter of knowing more football than somebody else. That's questioning a priority that was put into place. Also, as Steeler Girl points out here from Hawaii, we have eyes, Sam.
Yeah. I mean, listen, nobody here knows as much about football and knows more football than anybody who actually does this for a living. But whenever I having grown up playing the game, learning about the game, taking all that into account, I've learned the most about the game by talking with, learning from people who actually play the game at this level.
That's it.
Talking with players, talking with coaches, talking with scouts. You ask questions. You be inquisitive. Whenever it comes to a certain play or anything, whatever it is, you are the one who's asking the questions. Therefore, and also a lot of the times with these Chalk Talks, I've talked with players. I've talked with coaches. To know, so there's no guessing in that. And if I'm guessing, I will actually tell you I'm guessing.
Spin Williams, the Pirates pitching coach about 20 years ago, I was a Cub reporter doing baseball, once called me into the coach's room, and I was sure I was going to get reamed out for something, right? For something that I wrote or whatever. And Spin just said in a very gentle way, in this article, he said, you're making it sound like you know about pitching. Do you know about pitching? And I said, no, sir, I don't. Not compared to you. He goes, I'll tell you what, I can make you sound really smart. Anytime you need anything at all about pitching, come and ask me. And he actually meant that in a serious way. And I did. And I learned that lesson forever. Chris, I was able to report on the DK Pittsburgh Sports app the other day that the Skoranek touchdown and the Calvin touchdown were exactly the same play. Do you know how? Not by being smarter than anybody or anything else. Cal told me. And Skoranek was standing right behind Cal, nodding like this. And Metcalf, DK Metcalf, he's not standing, but he's sitting. He's sitting over here to the right, and he goes, "Yeah, that was it just echoes it. That was the same play." Like, man, you wouldn't think that, but that's how you find stuff out. You ask questions. You stay humble about it.
And what's really, really fun about watching that play back, knowing you already know it's going to be the same play, is watching the way that they execute it the second time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not about what the Jets did. I completely forget about what the Jets did, and I'm not trying to take anything away from today's Chalk Talk, but I'll give you a little hint. Calvin Austin's detail on what he did,
it's pristine.
I'm telling you, sometimes all it takes is the slightest little bit of selling anything, and I'm telling you, it's when you know. Especially, as Steelers fans, you should appreciate an offense that focuses on detail after having to witness the Matt Canada offense, because there was no detail on that offense. When you go and you watch the attention to detail that happens in this offense under Arthur Smith, and especially with now Aaron Rodgers a quarterback, it's insane.
You can tell I'm champing over here to try to share what Cal said. You said you weren't going to concern yourself with the Jets portion of that. Cal told me that he looked at the guy's feet, the one that he ran by.
Yeah,
and he said, right. He said, but even if he had decided that he was going to, go ahead and peel off the Skoranek guy in that play, he never had a chance to catch me.
Yeah.
Cal's Twitter account name, by the way, is Can't Catch Cal.
Yeah.
Well, you sure can't catch him when you're standing still and he's running in the direction you're not facing.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Full credit, by the way. I don't mean to leave him out of any of these things. In both cases, Aaron Rodgers had to make the right decision and the right throw, and he really nailed it. Chris loved his throw to Cal.
It was, and watching it back on the all 22 from the end zone view was just insane. And we got a good question here. Is there going to be a Chalk Talk on Aaron Rodgers? This is going to yes, today's Chalk Talk is mainly going to be on the two identical plays, but I will be highlighting Rodgers on that too. Like, so it'll kind of encompass that.
Anyway, back to Broderick Jones. I don't mean to get all positive on all of you who hate the positive stuff. And you know who you are. When we're talking about this offense, it's not going to go anywhere until the left tackle problem is solved. And Chris just said to you a handful of minutes ago that all he has to do is be average. And now Chris is immediately thinking of what I said to him at one point on the Turnpike, which is, if you're average, if all you're looking for is average, might you not already have that in-house? In other words, Calvin Anderson is on your roster. Now, I don't know that Calvin Anderson has some first-rounder ceiling or potential or anything like that. He's in his late 20s, but he's been in the National Football League. He's been a professional. He wasn't around too much through training camp, which is the biggest reason that we're not going to have all that clear of a view on what he can offer. But if he's just average, if the bar is now 3 sacks and 4 pressures here and average is up here, then you look at it. Chris and I have both reported that one of Omar Khan's priorities, his number one priority in the closing weeks of the offseason was not a WR2, but was in fact additional depth at offensive tackle. He didn't succeed in getting it, but that search doesn't necessarily have to be over. If you can go and get Julius Peppers today, or Jabril Peppers today. I called him Julius because it's actual Julius Peppers. Jabril Peppers. If you can get him today, people are out there. Yeah. People are out there. You can find yourself. Now, I'm not making it sound like left tackles grow on trees. I'm not an idiot. But you can find somebody to just not suck.
I mean, no, seriously, that if it comes down to it, especially if you find your way, if the Steelers find their way to be 6-1 or 7-2 at some point during the season, and they are doing that in spite of Broderick Jones allowing 3 sacks and 4 pressures a game, then you have to make a change at that point. If you're Mike Tomlin,
I'm sorry, Chris. I have to throw in something here because I'll forget about it.
Yeah,
I swear I'll shut up afterward and if you finish your point. But when you're talking about the left tackle position, you're not talking about one player or one position that's in jeopardy. You're talking about your most important position that's in jeopardy. So I don't want Brod to have this long runway where you say, well, 7-8 weeks or whatever else, because if Rodgers gets hurt for the season in week 2, you see what I'm saying? It's a different kind of situation. It's not like talking about replacing Keanu Benton, because Benton messes up. Nobody else is getting hurt. This affects the entire football team. I'm sorry. I'm shutting up now.
No, that's a very, very valid point. And I'm not saying that Broderick should have that kind of runway. But what I'm saying is that, like, listen, like, I am all for, like it or not, I'm all for starting from scratch at the beginning of a season, to not write off a guy after one game. Regardless of what they've done in previous seasons, regardless of, I'm fine with it, and that's why I'm saying, like, I understand why they're not just going to bench Keanu Benton after one game. I get it. I understand why they're not going to bench Broderick Jones after one game. I get it. But yeah, if he goes out there again against the Seahawks and he has another terrible game in which Aaron Rodgers gets just obliterated a few times,
and Rodgers survives it so that this doesn't become a moot point,
right? Then I understand at that point where Mike Tomlin should have to actually think, okay, listen, I truly believe with what we have on this team, offensively, defensively, and on special teams, that we have a legitimate chance to compete for a championship. And if Aaron Rodgers, if week 1 is any kind of show that Aaron Rodgers can be, I would say that week 1 was about 75 to 80% of what Aaron Rodgers was in his last MVP season. If you can get that from Aaron Rodgers all season long, you have a chance to go into a stadium with a Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and have at least a puncher's chance. Maybe the ball bounces your way a few times. Maybe you get lucky. Who knows? But you at least have yourself a puncher's chance because you have a quarterback who could put the cape on and make a few big-time throws. And shame on PFF for not crediting the big-time throw to Aaron Rodgers in that game, because he had 2 of them by my count.
Yeah, Matt says the Steelers screwed over Jones by flopping him around, meaning from left to right and right to left. At some point or other, Matt, you just got to block.
Yep.
Okay, you just got to block. You've been paid, you've been drafted, you've done it in college. At some point or other, you've just got to block. The left-right thing, there isn't an offensive lineman, current or former, who would agree with this assessment, Matt. Not one. Not one. They would tell you, just get over there. You have an entire camp over there. You have an entire preseason over there. Just block. That's all. These aren't issues of he's not used to people coming from this side or that side. These are issues of he's lined up with somebody and he doesn't block them. He can't block them. They beat him. The schemes will beat him. And I'm going to repeat, I don't want any part of him being babysat. I'm not taking Darnell and sticking him next to his shoulder. That's when you're operating with a handicap. You're literally running the offense with a handicap. You can't be doing that.
No, you can't. And listen, the two things that the two narratives that are out there that kind of just are irritating is the whole, like, the Steelers screwed him up because they started him on the right side. Now they're this whole flip-flopping thing. I'm sorry. That did not have the impact on Broderick that everybody thinks it did. It just didn't. It's not an argument. There's no theories out there. There's no conspiracy. Just stop. It's not true. It's just not. The second one is blaming it on Pat Meyer. I'm sorry. I don't buy that at all, because you only want to blame Pat Meyer for the Broderick Jones failure, but you don't want to credit him for Zach Frazier going out as a rookie and being a borderline top 5 center in the league. You don't want to credit him for Mason McCormick coming in as a 4th round pick out of South Dakota State and being
highest graded player, highest graded offensive lineman in this game was Mason McCormick.
Right. But then Troy Faltanu being pretty good, all things considered, in this game, for this being his second NFL game and not having played actual football for almost a calendar year. All things considered, Troy Faltanu played really well. You don't want to give Pat Meyer credit for that, but you want to blame him for Broderick Jones. I'm sorry. Eventually, it falls on the player. And maybe could the Steelers have had a better plan in place? Sure. But it's also on them to make a better draft choice, too. They chose to go with a player who was going to need more coaching to develop to achieve his ceiling.
That was a willful selection. They were going for ceiling. They were going for potential.
That was more taking the raw talent and hoping, with all the other intangibles that you think you knew about him, that he could develop into that top tier left tackle. You could have gone for a more lower ceiling guy with a higher floor, so that if you miss, it's not as much of a swing and a miss. Maybe you get a bloop single out of it instead of swinging and missing and falling on your pants. I don't know, man. It just, the excuses have to stop. At some point, the players got to play.
Swan comes in with a $10 contribution that's appreciated and says, I thought that Broderick Jones had a decent rookie year. He did. He really did. Do you have any idea why he hasn't progressed? Was it something as simple as teams figured him out and he didn't adjust? I hope he can still improve. He can improve. There are elements to his game. When you talk to people, as Chris and I were just saying, this is how you find things out about offensive line. You go and you talk to people who were offensive linemen. Here at DK Pittsburgh Sports, we're blessed to have Ramon Foster on our staff. When he says, listen, one of the things that Broderick needs to do is he needs to get lower and he needs to fight from underneath. And he's not used to doing that because he's such a massive guy and he was always able to just get away with being upright. Well, upright is easier to get around. Also, people will argue that not going low is lazy. That's lazy in the football context. He also can add to his repertoire of things that he can adjust with his footwork whenever a player goes to this side or goes to that side. All of that involves work. All of that involves absorption. And all of that involves grasping the reality. And one of the things that you get, and I talk to Brod as much as I talk to any player in that room, and I did briefly after this game as well. And I understand, excuse me, his teammates are coming up to him and, patting him on the knee and everything because they won. They were doing the same thing with Keanu, and Keanu, if you saw my video interview with him after the game, just smiling and whatever, because after the game, that's just sports. Okay?
You won the game. Yeah.
You won the game. That's why you went there. You got it done. Win as a team, lose a team, all of those cliches. Okay. Don't ever hold that against guys when you see them smiling after they didn't play well in a win.
Yeah.
And Broad had some of that going, and guys are coming by, and Troy Fautanu's sitting there with them, and they're having a good talk and everything. And the brief conversation I had with Broad, which I won't relay here, but you could just, I don't know that it's all making it. Okay. And he's a bright kid, so that's not at all what I'm suggesting. I think he shields himself to an extent from what he perceives as being negativity. He was the same way in the Denver game. Remember, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
After Denver, where he got yanked,
he got benched
off the field for those 700 committed the holding penalties in a row. Okay. Yeah. And he was still just, you think maybe this is the day that he's not going to be cooperative or he's going to be in a bad mood. And you go in there and he's standing there with his hands on his hips, ready for all the questions. Like, did you not notice how you played out there?
Yeah. Yeah. So another part, and this is why I say, stop looking for other people to blame, because Alan here asks, and this is talking about Broderick, shouldn't the coach be telling him that? Shouldn't the coach be telling him different things? It's on the player to then listen.
Alan doesn't. I mean, at some point, the player,
the coach
can block people, get in their way, throw yourself at their feet.
Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah,
but you can't just say, oh yeah, Skunk is the first one to come close here. Okay, listen, there also has to be an understanding that Quentin Williams is a hell of a football player on the other side, and we told you guys going into this week that team had a good defensive front. They did some very smart things, they did some very aggressive things, and they picked on the right guy to pick on. So there's also that. But block him. Win more than you lose.
Yeah.
This just isn't acceptable. It's not. This isn't us protecting. You just heard us spend a half hour ripping the coach for something that he actually deserves to be ripped on. This isn't it. If some guys just don't make it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Some guys just don't make it.
And unfortunately for the Steelers, if he doesn't pan out, then that's a first round pick again, gone to waste. That doesn't pan out. And
but way worse, they're carting off the quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, listen, I agree. While this is a make or break year for him, I don't think the Steelers, to make that point again, if the Steelers, if Mike Tomlin truly believes that his team is going to compete for a Super Bowl, and he believes it, he now actually is reinforced on his belief based off of what he saw from Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that offense, just in spite of the offensive line as a collective playing bad, put up 34 points against a defense that's got some pretty good players on it. So
we're gonna take two more questions today. Cody asks, isn't David Bakhtiari still out there? And he has a well-documented history with Rodgers. The answers to that are, well, yes, he obviously has the history with Rodgers in Green Bay, and he was a great, not good, not very good, great left tackle in his prime with the Packers. Unfortunately, David hasn't played for a couple of years. He kind of retired himself, kind of didn't. So he's still out there. He hasn't played football in anger in a long time. You have no idea what kind of shape the individual is in, what kind of mindset they're in. And as a lot of professional athletes will tell you, once you've retired, you've retired. It's not easy to come back. So it's not like he could just snap his fingers and do that. I would not consider Bakhtiari to be an option. However, it doesn't have to be someone like that. Okay. It like we've been saying all along, it can be Calvin Anderson. It can be Dylan Cook. It can be people that you have in-house who just don't suck.
I mean,
I like him. This hurts because I like the kid.
Oh, he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
And it's tough to see. It really is. It's tough to see. And it's tougher for me to see that I don't know that it all makes it through. If not that everybody needs to be Troy Fautanu on and off the field or whatever, and not that Fautanu was perfect in the opener, by the way, he was not. But Troy he's probably your template for how you want to react when things don't go well. Takes it hard, wants to get better, wants to learn from it. And I don't pick up on that from Brod. Everything is just back to the lab, back to whatever it is that they tell me to do. And that's not okay. That's not going to be the answer to anything. Let's find one more question here from somebody here. Michael Cross says, "Can we channel some positive energy to poor Russell Wilson? We need him to continue starting to get the comp pick." I got to tell you, and I told you guys this all summer and early on in the summer in the offseason when I reported exclusively that the Steelers were not interested in bringing Russ back, that there was a very strong school of thought within the Steelers that he's toast, that he's done, that he still thinks he's Seattle Russ. By the way, speaking of guys who are smart but don't necessarily let all of the information process, that's what happened with Russ. He thought he could scramble out of anything. Well, he couldn't. That's why he got sacked 100 times. That's why he's going to be a disaster for the other New Jersey team. And that's why they're going to have Jackson Dart starting probably before the end of the month.
Yeah. That would be unfortunate for the Steelers because that could cost them. Maybe not a complete, cost them a complete pick, comp pick, but I think right now, if he were to play and start and he would project to be about a 5th round pick, he would not be getting that if he gets benched for Jackson Dart. He could still, just because he's making, I think, $10 million no matter what, but he could still get you a pick, but it wouldn't be a 5th rounder. So, but if you want to be encouraged by anything, if Justin Fields plays like that for 17 games for the Jets, you're getting more than a 4th round pick out of that.
That's true. And also, you can't control this stuff. No. Randy Wagner gets our last question of the day. He says, DK, I'm remembering the 2023 NFL draft. You had us all excited at the time over Jackson Smith-Njigba as a wide receiver. He says, you were right. We should have drafted him at number 14. I did want the Steelers to take Smith-Njigba, but I'm not going to lie to you, Randy. I had the most inside source on this particular story. That was his brother who was playing for the Pirates at the time. Kanan Smith-Njigba was telling me, I can't believe people aren't recognizing how good my brother is. Now, every brother's going to talk up the other brother. I'm sure if you were talking to Jackson when he was at Ohio State, he was telling you that Kanan Smith-Njigba was going to be a Hall of Famer for the Pirates across the river. But at that time, and I remember this conversation that I had with Kanan. This was in Cincinnati. I don't know how I remember stuff like this at Great American Ballpark. And he was telling me, go watch such and such game of Ohio State, and you'll see why the Steelers should take him. Absolutely take him. And then he was also saying he's not going to fall that far. Well, okay, history showed where that went. Yeah. But I looked at the tape of what Smith-Njigba can do. He's a star. He's a star.
He's a good receiver.
When I was out in Seattle just now to cover Pirates and Mariners, an entire half of Lumen Field where the Seahawks play has a giant Jackson Smith-Njigba banner. And unless I'm missing it, I don't see a giant Broderick Jones banner. Those are franchise-changing decisions, as Chris was alluding to earlier. They are. Yeah, you got to get it right.
You got to get it right. Now you're not going to hit on every draft pick. Nope. You can't expect to hit on every draft pick, but the ones you really don't want to miss on are the first rounders, and the Steelers have missed on far too many first rounders over the last few years. And that would actually be Omar Khan's first. That was his first draft pick. You could talk about Najee Harris and Kenny Pickett and all that. That was also before Omar took over as GM. Broderick Jones was his first pick. And so if it doesn't work out, now he may be able to salvage that class if Joey Porter Jr. continues to become a really good player. But again, Keanu Benton's from that class. You know, if some of these players don't pan out, that's going to end up not being a very good draft class, and that's going to end up hurting the team. So, we'll see. I mean, there's still 16 games left in the season. Maybe Keanu Benton turns it around. Maybe he has a good season. Who knows? And that's why you don't write off a guy after one game. Yes, you have a previous body of work to go to, but a new season is a new season. Some guys break out, and it's not always perfect. It's not always pretty. So we'll see what week 2 has in store, but there are definitely some red flags right now on both sides of the trenches.
The best way to keep up with all of this stuff is to download our app. I'm not reading anything for you here. I'm just sharing some actual information. Make sure you go get our app. Look under Chris's face over there. See, he's smiling. Look at him. Download our app. dkps.net/apple is the place to find that. Yeah, my wife says that's going to be what the Chris bobblehead does. Like this. Whenever we get those made up, dkps.net/Android. If you have an Android device, after you do that, and this is the part that's not on the screen, and I'm about to put it there. After you do that, email me. Now, sometimes you say stuff like, "Oh, email us," and you get this like somebody from Bangkok, Thailand responds or whatever. Send me an actual email. I'm going to sit. I have a chair over here that I sit at, and I check comments afterward to these shows. I'm going to sit right there and wait for you to email me so that I can send you the discount to get in to the premium level of this app at a discount that nobody has yet said no to. Chris, I'm pretty sure we're batting 1,000 on this. Like no one has said, "Oh, really? That much? Oh no, we're not doing that. That's crazy." Oh, so here is the email address. It's dk@dkpittsburghsports.com. You can see that everything is spelled out. First, download the app. Second, email me. Third, we're going to get it done. We're going to get you into the place where we do all of our actual work. And we did a lot of work in East Rutherford, did we not,
We
Mr.
sure
Howard?
did. We sure did.
Chris filed complaints with the Labor Association.
I did not. I did not. We both got done around the same time anyway.
Yeah, one thing you know about working hard in this particular company is that you're going to have a hard time outworking the boss. We sat there and it's funny. We had our minds made up beforehand. We're not going to go crazy this time. We're just going to, no. We're not going to do too much. And then like, okay, but Boswell kicked a 60-yarder. All right. Well, that's an article too. All right. Yeah. Well, then what about the strip play on the fumble that Kenny Gainwell forced? All right. Well, that's an article too. And we just kept going and going and going. And
yeah,
whatever. It all feels good when you guys come along and read it and support what it is that we do. So we'll see you guys tomorrow, but make sure you get the app now.